Hi, gang. Welcome to Behind the Rhinestones. I am your host, Dinah Dare. And on this channel, I chat to some of the stars of the burlesque and cabaret world, primarily in the UK. Every now and then we get a sneaky peek and a sneaky guest. And really, we're just looking at the world behind all the shiny rhinestones. Today, I have another performer from London. And if you've been following these, it's another member of the lovely Coven. It is Pandora Carnage. Hi, Pandora. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I absolutely love your channel, so it's an absolute honor to be part of it. Thank you.
No, it's so lovely to hear that. Thank you. And I adore that we already have a guest in your cat in the background. I love a cat guest star. So already one of my favorite interviews, 10 out of 10. Love it.
Oh, yeah, so that's Blondie. So he might wake up and start, he might want to join in the interview later on, but yeah,
That's
he'll be
absolutely fine. It's nap time for all of my cats, so they are sleeping in various points throughout the house, so I don't think they'll bother me. It's not food time. That's essentially, as long as it's not food time, it's fine.
cool. Nice.
So how's your weekend been? Because we're recording this Halloween weekend, so I assumed you have been a busy, busy bee.
I have, and it was very nice last 48 hours. I had a gig on Friday at India Star, and it was with Gina and a few other amazing performers. And it was just really nice to perform with Gina because obviously she's one of our cover members. And we then drove, I had a show in Manchester on Saturday at the Ember Vixens show. And it was nice because me and Gina, we drove to Manchester, had a little like day mini trip before she went back home, and then I went to for tech and stuff. So, and then I drove back all the way from Manchester last night. So I didn't get back until like 3 o'clock in the morning, which is fine.
Oh, the true life of a showgirl. Yeah.
Indeed. But it was worth it because I think because there was no traffic, and I think I had music on that I really enjoyed to listen to, and I think it was better than driving the next day where there's traffic and there's light, sunshine because it's really bright. That's why I've got my blinders down. Yeah, I just powered through, and it was not too bad in the end, because also the adrenaline was kind of keeping me going and keeping me awake. So yeah, but it was a great sort of weekend so far, and I love Halloween, and the fact that I got to perform on Halloween was like a massive like milestone. So
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful for being given the opportunity. So yeah.
And India Star as well, like I really want to do one of her shows because her shows are like such an amazing standards. I saw all the clips of the Halloween one and it looked so good.
It's so good. It's such a beautiful theater. Obviously, there's history behind it. And also, like, I think it's the tech, the lighting just really sells the act so much and t carries the story. Because I was watching a few after when you have a moment to kind of watch others. And I was just gobsmacked to be like, wow.
Hmm.
So, and yeah, I like India Star is such an amazing producer. So, I know that she's moved now to Bristol and she's got another show in December, but highly recommend if and when she's got castings to just apply, apply, apply. Just even send her a little, if you can, just to put yourself on your on her radar, you know.
Yeah,
Because
I
you never
yes,
know.
I'm always like, hi India, and then she'll be like, oh, I want Halloween stuff. And shockingly, I love Halloween. Don't have any Halloween acts. I need to correct that. I know, I don't know how. So I need to correct this immediately. Um, so yeah, so next year when all the castings go out, I can be like, yeah, I actually have an act instead of a costume that I just put horns on, which is
Mhm.
always a nice one to fall back on, but it's more fun to have an actual act, I think.
Yeah, with a character that you can really fall back into and really immerse yourself into it. And like, with your style, I can really imagine like something really exciting. So I can't wait for it.
I have ideas. We shall see. I'm also sort of on a costume buying ban because I've already spent too much money on costumes this year, but that's a next year problem, so it's fine. Um, cool. Well, I suppose we will start at the start, rewinding it. We're talking about what you've just done this weekend. Let's go all the way back to the start. So, how did you find your way to burlesque and then end up on the stage?
Well, So it's like I was thinking about it. I almost feel like burlesque kind of imprinted into my sphere very early on. And
Okay.
it took a very long time for it to come into fruition. It's almost like, when you've got like the universe kind of throws little breadcrumbs into your way to be like, experience this.
Hmm.
Or introduces you to certain people that you then see again 10 years later or whatnot and just be like, oh my God, you do this. But my first burlesque show that I went to was when I was 18, and it was via a friend that I used to have at uni called, and they are actually in the burlesque scene themselves.
I
They are
see.
part of the Rastabouts. They're like a DJ duo. Um, his name's Mark Sherrod. And
Okay.
this is like obviously before he became Mark Sherrod, but like he was working or chaperoning or helping out Empress Star. And so he was like, do you want to come and see a show at the Soho Review Bar? And I was just like, yeah. And it was at a time when burlesque, or at least how it was told, it was presented to me that you had to be 21 to see it. And I was 18. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go see something that I'm not supposed to see. And it was really like an eye-opening. And Empress Star was like such an interesting introduction to burlesque because she was more on a cabaret side and probably vaudeville.
Yeah.
She did sideshow as well. So there were a few acts of hers where, she did a beautiful hula hoop act as a sailor gal. And then there was a glitter, like where she came out completely covered from head to toe, completely in gold glitter, just walking around so beautiful and just so, and then she got out this like a it's like obviously I'm saying it's a kettle, but it was more like a teapot, but like a very glamorous teapot, and she poured, I think it was oil, because then like everything, like then revealed her breasts, and it was just so oozing and sultry. I loved it. There was also an act which stays with me because I love avant-garde stuff. And it was also when I was younger, I enjoyed, like, I found Lee Bowery when I was 16 through a documentary that there was. So I was already kind of like in that idea of like alternative art and expression was
Yep.
kind of in me, and just I enjoyed exploring the alternative. And there was one act there, and I will try my best to explain it without freaking
Yep.
anybody out. But they were basically like dressed up in drag, but like very bad, deliberate drag, where it's just like very bad wig, very bad makeup, and like a really frumpy white old lady's gown.
Okay.
And they were chopping onions while wailing and crying to Michael Nyman's memorial. Do you know the film The Cook, the Thief, and the Wife and the Lover?
Yep.
Literally that. It was just like chop, 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 chop. That was the whole act. And I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm, yep.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it was just brilliant. And I just thought like this is brilliant in the sense that like, what performance art can be, and to
Mhm.
expose like audiences to. And yeah, so that stayed with me. And then later, a few years down the line, I actually worked in a live music venue, which hosted World Burlesque Festival and the London Burlesque Festival.
Mhm.
And so I usually worked during the daytime and then like left in the evening, but where then sometimes I was able to watch the shows and stuff. So again, I was a kind of exposed, so I got to see like a few other loads of very well-known performers there. And at one point, I don't know, it's weird. At one point, my partner at the time, his mom actually said to me, oh, I can see you doing this, in my muggle name, saying, I can see you
Yep.
doing it. And I was just kind of like, it didn't really sink in. I just thought like, oh, yeah, it's interesting. It's art.
Mhm.
I love seeing like, because you got to see again sideshow, and you got to see different performances using different props. And but I never thought about pursuing it because my idea of burlesque was very much like you need to be thin, you need to be coming from theater, dance
Yep.
background. Like it was very much like it's not an easy in. And
Mhm.
so don't bother even thinking about it. That was my sort of initial preconception about it. I guess also because going and seeing London Burlesque Festival, there was no diversity. It was very
Yep.
much like one style. And so I was just like, I appreciate, I can, applaud and, so like, applaud the performances, but it's very much very distant.
Yep.
And then a few years down the line, I worked in a dance studio. So I managed the studio, and there were like loads of creatives coming in and out using the space. And one of them was a burlesque school called the Cheek of
Mhm.
It. And I would have to deal with Zoe in terms of hiring the spaces and making sure that they've got the studio for like X number of whatever courses that they need. But it was also nice to see all the variety of type of students that came in and out. And when I started to look on their Instagram, and then obviously the alumni that came out of it and how much success they were making, I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. Like, you don't actually need to be, yeah, it helps to have a theatre background or a dance background, but like, there's no harm in trying it. And it was also quite nice because some of the students would actually stay, or they'll come a little bit earlier before the classes would start, and they would speak to me, and I would ask them like, "Oh, what are you working on?" and stuff. And
Yeah.
tell me about the troupe or like the characters that they would be, or like the solos that they'll be working on. And just like gradually through speaking to them and kind of seeing the excitement and the dedication that was coming through, I was just like, well, this is, I like to perform because when I was at uni, one of my sort of dreams was to be a solo performer by playing music and singing. And I used to do that, and there was a lot of theatrics incorporated in my live shows. But then I kind of morphed into wanting to become a film music composer. So whilst I was at the dance studio, that was my sort of focus to be a film music composer. But then speaking and seeing and also speaking to Evelyn Carnage, because again, she would come in a little bit early and we would have a chat. And I remember
Yep.
asking her about like, what's the sort of main thing would you advise a burlesque performer or a newbie? And she would say, like, in terms of like your acts, try and have and work on have really two strong acts first initially to get them to a really high standard to really enjoy it, rather than just wanting to do so many at the same time. um so I kind of took that, and yeah, so then I thought I will, what's the word, take a chance and
Yep.
do a beginner's class. And it was fun. We did the sort of troop showcase, and that's where I met Aya as well,
Yep.
and a few others. And then we signed up to do the solo, and then basically the rest was history. So like Evelyn Kana was like our teacher for the solo, and she was absolutely an absolute godsend and just amazing in how much she prepared us for
Yep.
like the craft, the industry, and in terms of just how to like to some of the things that we need to prepare ourselves for being performers, and
Hmm.
how we create our acts. And yeah, and then the rest is history. Coven was formed. We all flourished in our own way, and yeah, I think, well, that's pretty much kind of like how Pandora came to be.
I love that though. I have also seen Empress Star at the Edinburgh
Amazing.
Fringe. Before I did burlesque, I was into circus and she was doing it was in like a circus show. And she will always stick in my brain because the act that I saw her do, it was a hoop act,
Yeah.
aerial hoop,
Yeah.
but she was wearing a laser butt plug that she then put on while she was doing
Oh,
tricks.
no way. But yeah,
So
so
it's
she kind of mixed the sideshow with it. That's what I mean. It was very quite cabaret and like sideshow-esque, like not just your standard sort of classic burlesque. It was neo, but like to the next level. Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And it will always stick in my brain because I think it was like the last or one of the last acts of like the show.
Yeah.
And it was like the first time I'd seen a hair hang and things like that in a show from someone else. But that will always stay in my brain because I was like, I wasn't expecting that.
No, didn't even know that was possible, but now, yeah.
Now I do. Now I'm like, yeah,
Why
great.
not?
Obviously you talked there a lot about like performance art and that artistic sort of side of it and not knowing that that was something you could do. Do you think that that has influenced the work that you do now? Do you have that kind of performance art aspect to some of what you do?
In terms of like how I create acts or
Yeah, just like in general, like how you create or what your performances are, do you think that there is an influence there from that kind of more avant-garde-esque side of things?
yeah, you know what? I do actually think like, and this is probably one of the advice that, we can come back to for like some of the newbies, but like when I started burlesque is absolutely the right time when I should have started burlesque because
Mm,
all my previous experiences in terms of my journey when I wanted to become a solo performer and all the sort of things that I tried, how I learned about different types of crafts and art in the art forms myself, I feel like kind of gave me a good foundation to
yeah.
take burlesque and make it my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then how I tackle creating art and costumes and characters and everything else. So, like, I try not to think about, oh, I wish I started it earlier or when I was younger, because I don't want to perpetuate that idea that you need to start really young
Yep.
in order to make something of yourself. Because the great and the amazing thing about burlesque is that you can actually start at any age
Yep.
when you feel like there's some sort of a need that you want to fill to express yourself and um because also, it's a nice way to know that, like, me starting a lot later than perhaps somebody else can inspire them to
Mm-hmm.
start and be
Yep.
like, well, because anything can happen in a short space of time, you know? And I think as long as you believe in yourself and as long as you give and commit to it and just go with it and try not to have imposter syndrome and just kind of like, yeah, try and give belief in yourself. Like you don't know where opportunities can come and how quickly things can come together. Because yeah, with like other art forms like ballet or contemporary, and perhaps even acting, like other those art forms are very restrictive.
Yep.
And burlesque isn't. Like I was talking to somebody at the weekend where, they felt like they came into burlesque and a lot of things happened for them very, very quickly in terms of
Yep.
winning awards, in terms of even being invited to go internationally. And they only been performing for a year, but they felt really overwhelmed by it. And
Mm-hmm.
like they were like close to burnout. And then they were like, you know what, I'm going to take a break. And we were just talking to them. And I said to them, like, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
If you need to take a break, when you're ready, you can come back and burlesque will still be there. And we're all going to open our arms to you. And I think there's no other really industry or kind of like art form where you can take a break for whatever reason, whether it's, self-care or starting a family or just having a break for, moving, whatever. And like Ginger Sterling, like she initially started at the beginning, then she took a big break and then made a big comeback. And look how things have just kind of flourished for them. So yeah, does that answer
Yeah.
the question though? I feel like I
I
went a bit on a tangent then.
I love the tangent though, so we're just gonna go with it. It's fine. Um, yeah, I think. Sorry, I do think taking breaks is important. I've said that before, whether it be extended ones. Sometimes life happens, and like this is burlesque is a part of our lives, and it can be a very dominating part of our lives.
Mm.
And if something else comes up or is takes up more of our time, then burlesque maybe has to take that step back, and I think that's fine to do that.
Absolutely.
We're all out here balancing about 10 different plates at the same time. So, yeah, sometimes you have to like let a plate just sit down for 5 minutes and then come back to it. And I think, yeah, um, I really like that you had that conversation and that you've got the same view. And I've said before, I think coming to burlesque a bit older, I had a better sense of self.
Mhm.
I don't know if you maybe felt that, and that's maybe you can channel that into creativity that's maybe a bit more you because you have a better idea of who you are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they say that like as you get older, when you reach a certain age, you give less fucks about certain things, which therefore allows you to be yourself, and therefore, as you say, to channel and be confident and take those risks as well and not be influenced by others. I think that's some of the things that with certain things, when you start really young, you're more prone to influences because you want to try and prove yourself constantly. And then, it can be a very dangerous sort of like like balancing act where you might actually fall into like being a carbon copy of somebody as opposed to being your genuine self. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, in the benefits of, I guess, starting a little bit later is, as you say, knowing yourself better.
Even though that's still a journey every day.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I mean, yeah.
we're talking obviously about like that knowing ourselves and knowing our styles. How would you sort of describe your style?
Well, God. I mean, my sort of tagline is shapeshifter with a dark edge.
Hmm.
Because I like the fact that when I say by shape shifting, it means that it's like I don't present one fixed persona. It means
Hmm.
that each performance that I do, I invite a new character, a new experience and journey for the audience to take them on.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a topiary that I've done where people when the audience first sees it they'll start laughing perhaps, or maybe when it's a toxic love character, and there's a mixture of two, whether it's a nostalgia because they like Ferngully or they've seen Ferngully, so I take them back on that journey, and then others may get freaked out by the costume and the character I bring, um or like Snowflake, and then with Snowflake, the character, as soon as she opens her face everyone goes, ah. And like I just, yeah. So the shape shifting is to be able to kind of be a variety of characters. And then the dark hedge kind of refers to me actually enjoying channeling the dark characters and the mood. Because even though if there's some acts where I start off very cute or very like unchallenging, it can then shift to something that's quite sinister. And, I often prefer that rather than being purely light or glamorous. And yeah, just like the costume and the characterizations and the music all align to create an atmosphere that's seductive but unpredictable.
Yeah.
And yeah. I also like, I hope that the audience feels kind of charmed and unsettled at the same time, but also entertained. I want them to be able to go away and feel like they've seen something unexpected. Same way how like, you've seen Emperor Star and that image, that act, the
In
stage.
my brain.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like, yeah, that's kind of like what I would like to describe that my style, that it takes you on a journey that you'll never forget, so to speak.
I think when I see a picture of like one of your performances online, I'm always like, that's Pandora. I feel like you can see the picture and you're like, I know who that is. And I think that says that you have that sort of strong style, like you know what it is you're trying to do.
Oh,
Um, I also think you're very known for your silk work, obviously. Um, was that a skill you had before? Was that something you picked up? Like that has become, to me, I think of yourself and I think silk fans. Um, it's just an ingrainment that's there. Was that something that you sort of picked up along the way?
oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. Because I absolutely, that prop is, it will stay with me for as long as I'm able to hold up fans and like throw them around and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
so again, like, when you kind of in preparation for this interview, I was just thinking back, like, when did I start I initially, there was the initial trigger point when I was introduced to silk fans. And then I went further back and I was like, I actually had a version of silk fans back when I was younger, when I was like 18. And these were my first silk fans.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
And
Look
these
at
were still tiny. Look at
they're
little babies.
so tiny. I love
It's like a little flower here.
it.
Um, yeah, so these were, I think, like when I was at uni, because part of me wanting to be a solo artist back in the day, with the theatrics, I wanted to have something that I can play with and dance with. And I went to see the Shen Yong show. It's um it's a very popular and they kind of do, I think, annually. Um I think they're based in China,
I
but they
think I know the show you're talking about. They tour and they do like the ribbon work and the fan work and all that
yeah,
kind
and
of
it's
stuff. Yeah.
very acrobatic and so precise and absolute amazing standards in terms of like the artistry and everything. And I remember there was one act that came on and they had these type of fans and how they were able to turn them into like these flowers and just all the
Mhm.
tricks that they were doing. And I was just like, ooh, that's cool. Oh, I want to try and just see. And
Mhm.
so that was kind of like the initial sort of inspiration to try and play around with it. And then I kind of forgot about it because then life kind of took over and transitions happened into different jobs. And then when I was at the studio and speaking to Evelyn, um, she in what was it? Was it Mahatma? I remember because Mahatma Candy, for instance, we've known each other since college. So like they worked with me one time, and I think they invited me to the Bit and Pizza that when they were performing at the Underbelly Festival.
Yep.
And that's where I saw Evelyn perform for the first time. So we were talking constantly, but I'd never
Okay.
seen her like, in action. So that was the
Mhm.
first time. And I'm going to hate myself that I don't know the name of this act, but like I'll describe it to you. It's the Tom Waits song, and she's got this beautiful green, it's almost like a dragon-esque dress, and it's beautiful. And she had these beautiful silk fans, and the way she moved them, I
Mhm.
was hypnotized. I was mesmerized. I could not take my eyes off her. And it wasn't just full of tricks like nothing like that. There was a sensuality and slowness to it and
Mhm.
dominance in terms of how she used the prop. And like I was just like, oh my God.
Mhm.
And that kind of led into me wanting to do the solo because I already had signed up to do the solo course, but I wanted to then try silk fans. So then it was nice that Evelyn was there to then teach, because I could obviously like fiddle her brain, if that's the right word. But
I know what you mean. Yeah.
her brain, pick her brain and just be like, oh, I'd love to get any tips and stuff. And, but also at the same time, find my own expression with it.
Yep.
Because Evelyn has her own performance of style with the fans that's very unique to her. I then wanted to find my own.
Mhm.
How do I use them? What do they mean to me? And this is something that I always mention and when I do silk fan workshops with Evelyn, or whether it's a one-to-one class with somebody who's interested with silk fans, I really try and drive into them like, I can teach you the tricks. I can teach you the basics and the foundations of how to transition from one flow to another, but then find your own.
Yep.
Find what it means within the act. Why are you performing with the silk fans? What do they mean to you? So like for me, like they are always an extension of myself, of my body.
Mhm.
Like whenever I perform that, they're either like my superpower, they're like my physical hands, because even though like these are like stage if you think about it.
Yeah.
And then you have like think of like fire bending or water bending style. Um but yeah, and the fans also let me play with lightness and drama because you how you manipulate them. You can be very soft and very gentle and just very fluid and calm, and then you can be very dramatic and
Yeah.
very like powerful. And it's great to be able to play around with those dualities. And again, I feel like this is one of the reasons why I also kind of love my name Pandora Carnage, because there's a duality in that name and it
Yeah.
allows me to channel that duality of being very graceful and regal and then be very dark
Yeah.
and fierce and dangerous and unpredictable. And yeah, so yeah, I always feel like I kind of feel like I always go on a waffle.
No, but
Uh,
I love that because I think see when you ask someone about something and they're so passionate about it, it comes across and you're clearly you're like silk fans are my babies. And I love that you understand why you're using them in your acts, you understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and you have found your own style. And I do think, yeah, for me, if someone says they want a silk fan act, I'm always going to be like, yeah, speak to Pandora. In fact, I don't know if she ever got in touch, but my partner's cousin's wife, fucking hell, she does pole and she wanted to incorporate silk fans, and I had pointed her to yourself. I don't know if she ever got in touch. This was like a year ago, but I know she definitely started following you because yeah, to me, it's your name that comes up immediately. Um, so it's fun hearing you talk about how you fell in love with them and how that's become your thing as well. Do you
Yeah.
just like pick them up and play with them sometimes and mess around and
I find that it's like a meditation for me. I
mm,
feel like if I've had a really like stressful or work painful day and I just need to switch off or I just need to not be in an admin work brain. I just want to be creative and I just might yeah, it's I definitely pick them up to just meditate and just
mm.
put on any kind of music and just kind of flow and just kind of like it's a form of exercise, but it's also just to kind of like try out and train myself. Like I also, I do drills as well because the danger of not doing or picking up a prop, whether it's feather fans or anything, if you leave it too long, like, your muscles will just subside a little bit. So you need to keep them going. So yeah. That's the one thing that when I do performances, like, I want to be continuously prepared and I don't want to look stiff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's a combination of like doing it for pleasure and just a bit of self-relief to just unwind and also just maintenance, really. So, what's the right word for it?
It's just kind of keeping everything loosey goosey, I think, because
Yeah,
I'm kind of I've got my big silk veil, and if I've got I always sort of make sure I'm playing with it. I need to go to a studio because it's too big for my house. I'll always book studio time before I'm going to be going away and doing it because it's getting loose, it's getting it into your body, it's reminding yourself how it moves, how you move, all
definitely.
those
Like
kind of
how it
things.
moves is so important to learn because I can guarantee, like, when you first get a prop, you are so nervous initially that you just kind of whack it around all over the place without realizing that slow down,
Hmm.
look how it moves, learn its little intonations, accents, like just really pay attention to like those sweeping arcs and like how the control, how it
Yeah.
differs from, and even your wrist work. So, and like your like veil, like the weighted veil, like I've seen videos of it and it's so good. Like it's such a beautiful color, like really
I love
gorgeous.
it so much.
It's a similar thing. Like you can easily just get lost in it and like your body then becomes a part of it. Oh, okay there, Blondie. Oh. But you know what I mean? So you get it then.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You just need to learn how to move with it because I think especially I remember when I first got my silk veil, I was like, I'm gonna learn all these tricks. And I learned all the tricks. I think I use like two of them when I actually perform because it's more about the flow and where does the veil want to go and
Mhm.
not to try and force it to do something that isn't going to work, especially because that act that I do it with is very much like the ocean and the sea. So you want those waves and everything. So you don't want it to like stop halfway through a movement and pull it back. Like that's not the purpose of what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, I totally get what you mean when you're like you need to learn that flow.
Yeah, it's finding the
Um,
right balance, as you say, because and this is something that when I do the if workshops and there's a where I teach choreo, I say to the students like, there's going to be a lot of things that I teach, and you can take three or four or just two like parts or little sections of the choreo that we do and add it to your choreo or your journey or your practice or whatever and just get it perfect because
yeah,
it only takes you don't need to complicate it unless you're up at unless you are sort of at a professional level where you know props so well that if it goes wrong, you know how to recover. Because
Yep.
if you overcomplicate it, that's where mishaps can happen and you can kind of put yourself off and it shows in your face and stuff. So the fact that, as you say, like, if you keep it simple, it can be more effective and
Yeah.
tell the story.
Instead of trying to be complicated for the sake of being complicated.
Just to show off, because then what ends up doing is like you're not showing off, you're actually just overwhelming yourself and just not really enjoying and giving the best performance that you can.
Yeah. You're too busy going, how do I move this?
Yeah, yeah.
You touched on your name. Obviously, there's a duality to it. Like, how did you come up with your name? Because it sounds like there is some thought put into
Yes and no. I think
that.
pressure of when we first had to come up with our names, I was just like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like I was thinking, like I was like, so Mahatma kind of helped me in that because we were a part of like our group with a few other friends, and like there were moments when I was actually brainstorming and messaging them to say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because initially I thought maybe I should add like a color name because I love purple.
Hmm.
Even though I'm not wearing purple, but like, well, no, these are like purple, they're like violet. So,
And it,
but do you know what I mean? So I thought initially maybe I should do like violet something, or another name, and then like gradually kind of morphed into kind of like mythical names. Because like Mahatma and
Mhm.
I, we both love like myths and legends, like particularly like the Greeks and Egyptians and all that and stuff.
I'm also so very much into all of that.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're like you can make so many burlesque like numbers out of them and just the stories and the history and it's the stories that like
Yeah.
you can get lost in and there's just so many dimensions to them. Um so yeah, and like can't remember what the name I was going through, but I somehow came to Pandora. And I don't know why. I think there was something about Pandora that sounded very quite like regal and
Hmm.
quite sort of I also obviously I know Pandora's box, the actual myth behind it
Yeah.
as well. So but yeah, I always love the mythology of Pandora. You're like, the woman who opens up the box, obviously depending, or the jar, like depending on the version that, because I know there's different versions that refer to it,
Yeah.
and how she unleashes all these wild, uncontrollable things into the world. And there's something powerful and a little dangerous about the idea, curiosity, chaos, transformation. And that felt very burlesque to me. So I was just like,
Yeah.
Pandora's, yes. Now, what's the surname? And the surname, I knew I wanted to be a little bit more of an oomph,
Okay. Hmm.
something a little bit more that to contrast the grace, you know? So, and I was just kind of like trying to think, like, what could it be? Because I didn't want it to go, because also I was still trying to figure out, like, what kind of performer am I going to be? So I didn't
Yep.
want to pick a name that was too, perhaps very alternative based name where people will assume that I'm perhaps more in the sort of gothic or grunge style, although Carnage does kind of sound a bit heavy, but do you know what I mean? Like there's certain
Yeah.
performers that have very specific name where it conjures up a picture.
Yep.
And yeah, I kind of think I felt like the Carnage kind of came as a counterpoint. It kind of adds grit, danger, and I guess a wink to the fact that my performance can mix elegance and something that's raw and intense. And yeah, so I guess Pandora Carnage became this perfect blend of myth and mayhem. It kind of it's a character, or it allows me to open up the box or jar and let all the unexpected glitter or rhinestone covered chaos out on stage.
I love that. And I think you're right. You've picked Pandora is quite it's a feminine name. I think it is, going back to the stories about the mythology, is one of the first women. Like it's got that aspect to it. So pairing it with something, as you said, that's got a bit more of a kick to it is it's clever. It's interesting. Yeah, you can play with it. You can lean into the softer side, and you can also lean into the, oh, she's going to bring carnage to this stage. Like there's that kind of element.
Yeah, it's like I like things that are beautiful but a little unsettling as well. And that
Mm.
name kind of allows me because then I can challenge the audience to like see, as you say, the femininity and sensuality mixed in with something that's dangerous and freaky. Yeah. And I'm kind of like I've grown into the name because like at the
Mm.
beginning I felt there was a moment maybe like oh maybe it's the not right name, but then I kind of stuck with it and gradually the more and more I kind of created the acts that I was doing, I felt like it aligns because of that duality. And as you mentioned, there's the femininity and then there's the sort of the darkness and like the unpredictability and
Yep.
the fact I can be those things.
So it
So
gives you that range.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
Nice. You kind of touched on it at the start. You're obviously one of the what I feel is the infamous coven because every single one of these has come out and absolutely fucking batted it out the park. And I remember these all come out of nowhere and everybody was like, Jesus, who are these people? They're amazing. Um, and I know I've talked with previous people about how the coven has come about, so I'm not going to kind of talk about that again with yourself, but how do you sort of manage your own creation process when you're creating true packs? Because that must be sort of different.
mhm, definitely. I think the first thing I think I will mention, I think we're very lucky that we came together and that we found
Mm.
each other as a group. And that we kind of, and that we lasted as long as we have doing it
Yep.
for what we are doing, and that we've also managed to kind of go our separate ways and do our own thing, but then obviously still come together for like the coven for when we do a troop act or when it's a show or when we're like applying to do other sh like shows together. I think, but also it's like why it matters that we found each other is this, the quality and the type of people that we are in, kind of like we support each other and the openness. Because you mentioned about like how do we create acts when it's our own or when it's a troupe act. So like our first very first troupe was a silk fan troupe that I did, View to a Kill, and it was like after lockdown and we were just kind of like trying to do something creative and just put something out, and we did a
Yep.
video. It was like a music video where we filmed in the studio in Camden, with a few other segments of those who weren't able to make the studio. They did their own little self-found solos, and then I edited it into like a music video, and it was fun.
Yep.
But it was the first time where I actually, not only did I had to like come up with a choreo for a group, I had to teach the choreo. And I've never really taught it anyone. And I don't come from a dance background. Like I love dancing and like I've danced my whole life in for my own pleasure in clubs and I've taken classes, but it wasn't to a standard where I know the terminology of how to teach dance of like 1, 2, 3, well, the counts or the bevels or the names of like what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I was stressed as fuck. And I was just like, what have I signed up for? What have they kind of like pushed to do? I'm just like, what? I felt like I'm gonna disappoint. I had a lot of
Mm.
imposter syndrome. I felt so anxious. And but I came up with a choreo. I taught it my own way, which we always kind of throw back and say. So like there's a special sound in the song where it goes like the guitar sound. And I say, so when we do that nee nee nee, we do like the
Yeah.
Silk Clan move. And it's just so funny that that kind of became our so go to that everyone like with Aya sometimes similar thing. She comes from more of a dance background, but when she teaches a troupe number, like if she, you know, she'll refer back to say, okay, so when this music happens, this is what we do, and it's
Yeah.
nice to kind of have that little bond and just kind of understanding. And I think I'm so humbled and grateful that they actually believed in me to be able to teach the choreo to kind of bring this creation to life. And yeah, it then kind of set me on the path of learning to how to teach, because then I was able to teach, you know, another part, a great thing about burlesque is that like, you can throw yourself into something that you've never done before and really, you know, challenge yourself to
Yep.
flourish and keep going.
Mm.
Like whether it's like learning how to sew, whether it's learning how to like maybe video edit or something like that's very creative that you didn't think that you were capable of, and then you tried it once and you were like, "Ooh, okay, this is
Yeah.
hard. This is like scary, but like I will keep going." And then gradually it becomes your thing or another skill that you've obtained. So, but in terms of like how, like one thing that I learned is just how to you have more responsibility when it's a troupe act or troupe choreo because you need to be aware that everybody has their own different skill. Again, some people are dancers or they have a more of a dance or they're more prone to kind of dance moves or picking up choreo. Others maybe not, but that doesn't mean that they should not enjoy the choreo or that you
Yep.
should not allow them to flourish. But I always find like you need to be able to give them enough amount of challenge to learn a new skill, to
Yep.
learn how to perform or use a silk fan, but also enjoy performing it
Hmm.
and be yourself. So yeah, so that I think because when I'm doing my own solo acts, it's like I can do, I challenge myself to the brim to kind of like if I want to do something new or a different
Yeah.
act or a different part of a choreo. But for troop stuff, yeah, it's the one thing that you have to be quite mindful of that, you know, don't make it so complicated that people find it hard to learn, or
Yep.
they then, because people can get into their heads in their own way and
Yeah.
they'll end up not enjoying it. And you don't want to get them into that space. You want to, so that's why you have to adapt it. And I think Aya is so great with that because like she'll have obviously she has a vision of doing a troop act and like the latest one that we did was amazing. But she was able to kind of have modifications for those who perhaps might not have or be able to. Like she just wants them to be able to still have their like power and
Yep.
enjoy themselves, and but not make it too technical for them.
Yeah. That's the
Um,
thing, because as you said, that you have one of the lovely things about the coven is none of you are carbon copies of each other. You are all very different performers, but it does mean you all have very different skill sets. So one person is going to have a higher skill level in one thing than the other, which is fine, but it's how, yeah, I imagine balancing that as a troupe takes a lot of honesty amongst you as well to kind of be like, this is not working for me. Can we do something else? And being honest about what your limitations are to each
yeah,
other instead of just trying to like do it because you don't want to let people down, I suppose. It's about having that honest conversation of how can we tweak this or how can we do this?
definitely. And like for the person who is doing the choreo to be receptive to it, as
Yeah.
opposed to being like, no, we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
And it's like not budging. And I think you need to be, whoever is the lead in the choreo or production of some sort, like that ability to adapt and listen and take on things
Hmm.
and just work together is so important. And this is what, like I said earlier, I think this is what is very special about the fact that we came together, about our group, is that we are very individualistic in our own way. We all have our own different capabilities and things that we want to do and we don't want to do. But if we feel comfortable that we can communicate and that we will be listened and that we will be able to make magic out of it one way or another.
I used to. Every time I see your acts online, I'm like, oh, I knocked out the park again.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That really means a lot, Dinah. And like, I hope there's an element of like, I hope it inspires that, like, we're not the only sort of collective of performers. I know there's plenty of others, but like that is so important. That sort of That's what makes a coven, really, essentially. Even if you think about back to the witches of olden days, it's, no one person is dominating, really. You dominate yourself, like you stand out in your own way, but then you know when to come together
Yeah.
to be a unified group.
I think it's such a rare thing. I know that other groups exist out there, but you guys are the only group that, again, individually, you have all been quite successful, but you have still maintained that group And I
Mm.
think that's what makes you guys quite unique in that respect. There's definitely groups out there where maybe one or two people have become quite successful, but it's just I think that all of you have kind of went off and done so well in different things, and then you still have that core. I think it speaks a lot to who you all are as people as well as performers, to be honest, that you still have that as well. So it's lovely to see. I very much like, yeah, I like watching all the cover and stuff because I'm like, ah, it's the gals again. Love them.
Thank you. I think one of the sort of core things is that we champion each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't allow our egos to kind of get in the way of like if someone is doing better or they got a certain gig, whether it's internationally or in the UK, we don't start to think like, why did I
Yeah.
not get it? It's very much like, oh my God, congrats. Like seriously, this is so amazing. And I think that is such a learning self-development that I think is very important. I think probably everyone in their own way developed as we got along. And I think that is so important. I wish we had more. I mean, burlesque scene in some ways has it, but then there's certain parts where it doesn't. And I feel like that's where it's laying itself down. Because
Mm-hmm.
championing each other, you know, again, can be quite hard for some depending on the like if they're not particularly feeling well for that particular day. But at the end of the day, like we all have our own separate journeys, and
Mm-hmm.
everything will come if and when you need it to happen at the right time. So if somebody gets us slightly earlier than yourself, don't take it as a like like a negative that like you've done something wrong or you're not good enough. It's like, no, let's just keep going. You will make it. Like the same notion about rejection emails is like when the notion of like it's not now, it's what is it not yet, what's the term?
Yeah. It's not yet, but it is. It could be the future. So I think
It's
it's
not a
not.
no,
It's not
it's
a no.
not
It's a
yet.
not yet.
Exactly. So, and I think that is such an important thing to remember, that it's okay, maybe I'll use this time to develop or improve on this aspect,
Yeah.
but just still keep championing each other. And don't get me wrong, like, we're all human. We all still have those moments. If somebody does do better, you can't help but feel a little twinge of like, "Oh," but you then take a step back and be like, but great for them, you know?
Yeah, it's totally a self-awareness thing. Like on that, on success and doing well, you have done multiple festivals, multiple countries. Um,
So have you as well. You've
yeah,
done
yeah.
other
We're not
internationals
talking
than
about me,
me.
it's fine, shush. But I wanted to talk to you. Obviously, it's great that you've done all those things, and I've talked a lot about festivals, but I suppose what we don't talk about a lot with festivals is some of the unseen challenges to doing
Mm.
festivals. So what do you think are some of the unseen challenges to doing this sort of travel? Because I'm pretty sure was it last year? I swear to God, there was one year where I felt like you were at a festival like every weekend at one point.
Yeah, it was like I think 2023, and like that broke my bank. It was a great
Here's the first
experience.
challenge.
I mean, yeah, it was a lot, but I don't regret it, even though
Mhm.
my purse suffered. But as you say, I learned a lot about, and I got to meet so many different performers and so many different, visiting different cities I've never been to, but also like seeing how burlesque is in those countries. And I guess one of the challenge or some of the challenges, and like you touch upon it, and you do amazing posts about the transparency about traveling
Mm,
internationally and what you need to think about. So I won't go too much into it, but obviously the travel and the cost realities is one. Um, having to fund it yourself. Like if there's a festival which doesn't actually pay you, um,
mhm,
can be additional costs. But then there's some that, if they do offer a fee, that does help for it to go into flights or accommodation and stuff. But obviously now that traveling with like big costumes and just how much of like an extra strain on the purse it is, because you have to pay for big luggage, and and then you know certain costumes can be triggering odd looks at the airport security, and then I mean, and then having to explain yourself. I mean, I've had a few moments where people would be like, why have you got a Kama Sutra in your book? Or why have you got a corset that's like so bejeweled? And like, oh, it's just like, it's fine. I remember your one, like where you had a dildo or something. I
Yeah,
mean,
for my Pleasantville act. But they're always too embarrassed to ask anything about it, though. They're always just like, there you go.
yeah. But again, like that can be quite, you know, uncomfortable because if you don't like, because security can airport security can be quite authoritative and it can be
Hmm.
quite, some are not very friendly, some can be very, and that can really have an effect on your emotional state because just you feel like, you're being like interrogated and having to justify what you're doing. I guess performing across cultures and like different countries whereby every country and every audience responds differently.
Yep.
So, like humor, sensuality, and storytelling can land in very different ways, some
Hmm.
unexpectedly. And just it's learning how to kind of read the new crowd, but then at the same time staying true to your own style. That
Hmm.
can be both challenging and exciting. Because especially if it's an audience that may be a little bit conservative and you're bringing an act that is very alt.
Yeah.
You don't want to change anything about you. You just need to try and focus in and center yourself to like, no, I know that like this is gonna, you know, throw them off their chairs, but just stay true. Just try and follow through with it. I mean, like, I did a show in Munich where during my snowflake act, two old ladies literally walked out mid-performance because apparently they were expecting it to be Christina Aguilera burlesque.
Oh, of course they were. Jesus fucking Christ.
Right. So I was just like, and I try not to think that it was anything to do with me because as I was performing, I could see them leave. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
stay focused, like keep going. And just having to, if that does happen, learning not to take it personally because
Yeah.
you can't make everyone happy. No, not everyone is gonna like your style, and that's okay, you know?
And not everyone's open to being challenged. I think sometimes acts can challenge an audience's perception or ideas,
Yeah.
depending how political or whatever the act is. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, they either have to sit with that or walk out, but that's not really on you.
No, exactly. And again, that's a part of a sort of self-development that you kind of learn about yourself the more you do these type of shows, whether it's internationally or locally. You just learn that it's not me,
Hmm.
nothing to do with me. I'm here to perform, I'm here to do a job.
Yeah.
Okay? I do my job perfect. I do my job to the best of my ability. How you take it, I can't control either.
Hmm.
So we're in this nice sort of like agree to disagree space, right?
I like that. Yeah.
Um, Other parts are going into sort of culturally, so production standards can also differ,
Yeah.
where some are produced almost like a very like as though it's a private corporate event where every logistic is thought through to the T.
Hmm.
Then you've got others where they tick the boxes of everything, of all the logistics, all the production organization that needs to be done, but it's a little bit relaxed in some ways. Okay. And then there's chaos. And then ones where there's like absolute chaos.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt and
Hmm.
almost fend and kind of protect yourself in some way so you can still find enjoyment in the show. Because I've done perform like shows or even fest. And this also applies not just internationally, because this also applies how like,
Yeah.
shows are produced because, and it also applies to performer because you can get performers who are super organized, like are like they have everything like ticked off in terms of like how they communicate with you pre-show, post-show and everything. Then you've got ones who are a little bit relaxed, like they still do what they're supposed to be doing, but then there's a little bit of like,
Yeah.
like, and then there's just ones that are just they make your life, if you're a producer and having to deal with them, make your life hard.
Yeah.
That carries over to product to like festivals and producers in that aspect. And it's just learning how to knowing what your boundaries are Because another thing, like boundaries in the UK can be very different to a boundary in a different country.
Yeah.
And knowing when to kind of step in and protect yourself, and then knowing when it's just like, okay, maybe it's just a cultural thing because maybe they are very relaxed about certain things, but you shouldn't have to kind of jeopardize your own safety in any way. So if you feel like there's something that doesn't feel right, or communicate. I think learning to communicate to the producer or the team or whoever's in charge, and it really is, they either will take it on board and learn so that next year this doesn't happen, or they will just completely disregard and do what they want to do because they are
Yeah.
toxic.
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about as a side note, and I'm going to have to try really hard to not talk about this for the next 40 minutes. Um, so my undergraduate degree is in sociology. So culture, social interaction is really interesting to me. And a few years ago, I read a book for my day job called The Culture Map. And I actually have two YouTube videos about it, and I do plan on doing posts about it later this month probably, about how different cultures we're on different scales for different things. So like communication, time, feedback, hierarchy. I can't remember in total what the eight concepts are, but it applies so much to when you're performing abroad. Things
Mhm.
like time. In general, the UK, we like to be early.
Yep.
We see time as being like quite linear. There's other countries where time is kind of loosey-goosey.
Yep.
And as a person who's 10 minutes early to everything, oh, that's such an adjustment for me to realize that it's not. I view being late as someone being rude.
Professional.
Yeah. And I have to realize that that isn't the case in these other countries. That's just how they operate. Time is a bit more elastic to them, is the word I would use. Um, but I could talk about cultural differences with going to different festivals and stuff until the cows come home because I find it genuinely fascinating. Um, but there's definitely been at least one festival I went to that was just it was what you said, it was chaos. There was just very little communication, very little organization. I felt very lost.
Mhm.
And it was one of my first sort of examples of realizing, oh, yeah, I have to remember that this is very different.
Yeah, exactly. Don't like if you do a first, if your first international show is a bit of a shit show, don't let that be a stand or the standard or the
The thing that puts you off either. Don't let you think that's what they're all like.
well, exactly. But like, don't let that put you off because it's all part of the three categories I mentioned earlier. You know, it's either very organized to the T, to the point like it's a corporate event and like you take everything very very seriously, every single bit. As you say, you're probably on the first hand where like you come in 10 minutes early because you want to be prepared, you want to settle in, you want to be able to observe and just be like, you don't want to be stressed, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how certain producers in that first category take the festival, their production code. They just want to make sure they've covered everything so they alleviate stress for
Yep.
themselves. Then obviously the second one is a loosey goosey, but that applies to performers because I've been in festivals where the organized ones that are really see, and then the performers are very relaxed, and then how much it causes stress for the producers who are like, time is the money, where are you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just part of, again, self-development. I know I mentioned it a few times, but you just kind of learn about like who are you, and therefore how do you want to present yourself in these festivals. And also like if you are super organized, and you're going into a very chaotic place, just this is something that you need to learn about yourself, how to protect yourself, okay, how to therefore not understand that this is just a one-off, because you know
Hmm.
that you've experienced and that there are possible of other good structures where you feel protected, you feel looked after, you kind of know where you stand, and you know that you are there to do your job as a performer. Because the chaotic ones are, they are like the worst. The relaxed ones are like, you still feel a sense of you can do your job, but it's very much like, okay, let's just kind of have a little siesta. It's just, if you're a little bit late, it's fine. We've still got time. Like, doors are not going to open until this time, but like, you still get a sense of being looked after, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
I
middle
know
ground is,
exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean exactly. And I think it's also finding the jobs, still making sure you enjoy yourself in the ones
yeah.
that are maybe a bit more chaotic. Because I definitely think for me, the first one I experienced, I really did not enjoy, and I hate that I didn't have a nice experience, but that's partly because I needed to sort of almost shift my mindset to be like, what can I still get out of this that's still a nice time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
you invest a lot in going to a festival, no matter where it is, you do.
Time, money, energy, sanity as well. And I guess one out of five thing we kind of touched upon about it, and I think you kind of leaned into it about, I guess, backstage and community dynamics.
Hmm.
Like festivals are about, in some sense, about community in the industry, but it can be very overwhelming because sometimes you're in tight spaces with big personalities and limited time, and like just learning to respect consent. And
Yes.
again, we're going back to those three structures.
Yeah.
Um, Kindness goes a long way towards just keeping things safe and supportive for everyone.
Mm.
And I think that's it's a challenge, but it's also such a honor and privilege to be able to just be able to meet other performers and kind of see them in action and be inspired by them and, take that away. And yeah, and memories. I
Yeah.
think, yes, there are challenges, but there's also the positives, though. Just, yeah. And also the final thing, as we all know, the glitter crash.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh, it always hits, doesn't it?
yeah. But
Oh,
again, you learn how to kind of moderate yourself afterwards.
yeah.
Be in it. It's there because you've had such an amazing or traumatic time. But then, it's just, have that time to reflect, whether you
Yeah.
journal, like I always do at the end of the year. I take quite a big gap off work so that I can really just I don't want to be in the Christmas rush and New Year rush. I actually want to have like a week before to just be like, okay, let me think through this year. What has happened? And really
Hmm.
reflect and take that time to think about the future and really appreciate and give myself like a pat on the back on the things I managed to achieve. Because I think one of the things that we always, as performers, we're just so much on the go, 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 go that we sometimes forget about the big or little milestones that we've done and achieved. And we really need to take a step back and be like, wow,
Yeah.
where I was last year and where I am now, such a massive difference. And
Yeah.
it's like, I did that. And it's like, yay, me. And also, but also all the people who were there to support and,
Mhm.
who were, able to help that along the way. Because it can be quite isolating and lonely sometimes, especially when you're traveling with
Yeah.
luggage.
Oh God, so much to say. Um, I feel like throughout this sort of chat, you have sprinkled bits of your advice and knowledge. But if you had to kind of sum up, kind of what would your advice be for newer performers?
Okay, so I'll try and keep it brief, but there's like three things.
Go for
First,
it.
on a logistic side, heels. Wear the right heel height.
Yeah.
I made that mistake where I went for the standard, where I never wore heels prior to burlesque. Like I would
Hmm.
always be that person that when we went out clubbing and dancing all night long, I would be wearing my Dr. Martens, like my boots that are flat, because I want to be dancing until we get kicked out. I don't want to be wearing heels just to stand or sit down. Not
Yeah.
that that's bad on those who want to do, but for me, I was that was my like my heaven to just dance all the night, and I wanted to be comfortable. So yeah, when I started, that was a big mistake because reason why I say like heel height is so important is because you want to feel comfortable in the heel height.
Mm-hmm.
Start off small and then work your way up. The more confidence you get, because the worst thing is to be starting on a what is classed as a standard heel, and maybe your feet are not used to it and they arch and everything, and you end up stumbling, and then
Yep.
you might end up hurting, damaging your feet, because then when you have to go down, do you see what I mean? So it's better to
Yep.
just be gentle with yourself initially. Don't fall like if you don't have that background, just start small, find the exercises that need to kind of help with the arch and the, keeping stability and stuff, and then work your
Yep.
way up. The second point, I think knowing the difference between having rehearsal time and stage time and how that helps your act. Because, and I might be a minority in this, but I know it's really hard because in the current climate, a lot of spaces have been closing or like they don't put on shows or they've been canceling. So to
Yep.
get stage time, and especially where you are actually paid, is very difficult. But I think places where they offer scratch nights
Mm-hmm.
is a good place to try and gain stage time, because how I rehearse in the studio, I can rehearse as much as possible, but when I'm on stage and I'm with the lights are hitting me, I'm on the different stage flooring and I'm seeing the audience, that is where I gain confidence and experience
Yep.
and how to adapt and evolve. I think just allowing you, like, if you can, find those spaces where you can get on stage as much as possible to, especially if it's just one act that you just want to kind of really grow into yourself, because you're really not gonna get it perfect the first time you debut it. It's like it's gonna take you, like I think Ginger Sterling recently said that even when she does a first act, it takes her at least like 3 to 5 times before
Yep.
she's really into it. And it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true, because it's all these little nuances that you have to think about. Because when you're rehearsing and like you practice how to take off something, even if you fumble at first and then you correct it, when you're on stage, all that adrenaline can really affect that. Even though you practiced it perfectly in rehearsal, when you're on stage, it fucks up and you're just like, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
You learn from it. So I think just, yeah, knowing the difference between rehearsal and stage, and that they're both very important and not
Yep.
just be reliant on rehearsal. Um, yeah, like even if there's like open mics or anything where like you're in front of an audience, maybe even if you get like, so if you're usually rehearsing with by yourself, maybe get your friends, a mixture, to join you in the studio, so that, yeah, if say there's no spaces available, you can actually get them so it's reacting to them and you're
Yep.
used to reacting to them. And then the third thing is just, I mentioned it earlier, like just remembering that if you ever get a feeling of imposter syndrome, just remember that you started when you were supposed to
Mm.
on this journey, and just go with it. If there are things that you want to improve on, then improve. Find the time to do it. If others have started earlier, fine, that's their journey. I think just try and make do with what you have already, and just work towards it.
Yeah, instead of wishing for something else, just yeah,
And
make the
beating
most
your-
of it.
yeah, and beating yourself down, because I've seen that some people really kind of make themselves feel like, oh, I'm this or that, or like I'm so whatever, and you just feel like, well, what do you want to be?
Yeah.
What is your end goal? Like, what kind of performer do you want to be? And I guess that kind of falls into the fourth one. Just think about, actually, yeah, you started now, but like, say in 5 years' time, what do you want to achieve? In 10 years'
Mm-hmm.
time, what's going to be the next level up? Like, really think about like, what is the end goal? Is this going to be more of like a hobby? Is this going to be more of like maybe you're working towards being a headliner, or to perform internationally? Or is this just like a temporary thing for you to learn something about yourself, to recover or like heal something, and this art form helps you through that, whether it's like a body thing or whether it's some sort of internal like process mindset and everything. Yeah, just really think about more like in down the line, like the future, what you want to achieve. But don't like think about it, but don't like dwell on it too much because I know that it's finding the right balance of being present, but also planning ahead to be like, okay, because then it kind of gives you a nice sort of pathway in the journey planned out as to where you need to kind of make your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Thank you. And we've been chatting for ages. Could chat for more, as always, with these
I love this
conversations.
is so good. This has been such
It's
an
so
amazing
good.
experience. Thank you, Donna.
No, thank
Honestly.
you. And where can our lovely listeners and watchers follow you to see all your wonderful things that you do?
So you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Also got my website as well. So it's at Pandora Carnage. And yeah,
Yeah.
slide into my DMs if you have any questions about like silk fans. I actually have a free resource that's on my Instagram that if you want to learn and kind of like learn what kind of fans to get, or at least learn the basics in terms of the types and just some links on where you can get them, like how to do a warm up. Like there's a free resource on my in my
Nice.
on my Instagram. So yeah, to kind of help you get started. And then yeah, I always like to be available and approachable just for anyone who has an interest in burlesque or silk fans, just to help out really. Because I think, yeah, we need to try help each other out as much as possible.
No, I love that. Thank you so much, Pandora. And thank you so much for joining me today. I will let you go and eat all the chocolate and hang out with your cats.
Yay, thank you so much. And again, thank you so much. This is such an amazing platform that you're doing. So like, and you're such an incredible host. Honestly, you just make it so easy. And like, so like, I appreciate the tangent that I've been going on and stuff. So yeah, thank you. It's, you know, something to that I will think back at the end of the year and be like, yay, this was such a
Oh,
lovely
yay.
memory. So yeah,
I'm
thank
so
you.
glad. No, thank you so much. I'll see you later.
Yeah.